And now I will introduce our presenter, Phil Burdick. Phil has been working in the Sitka School District for 25 years as an English teacher, co-principal at Pacific High School, and co-assistant superintendent of the Sitka School District. PHS has been actively using circle protocols for 20 years and formal restorative practices and restorative justice for 8 years. Phil has worked with Rural CAP and the Fairbanks Native Association, supporting communities and organizations in implementing restorative practices in both in-school and in after-school settings. He has presented for the Alaska Association of School Boards, Alaska Department of Education and Early Development, and the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention in using circles and restorative practices. Please join me in giving a virtual warm welcome to our presenter, Phil Burdick.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. It's so good to see people coming in. I would like to begin, since Lily gave the introduction to me, I would like to begin with a land acknowledgement. Typically, I come to you from Tlingit Ani in Sitka, Alaska, the land of the Kiksadi. But today, I'm currently on the traditional land of the Duwamish people in lovely downtown Seattle. So I'm really happy that I am still able to do this via Zoom. Thanks, COVID. I'd also like to thank the After School Network and especially Anna McGovern for this opportunity, as well as the support in making sure that I get all of my questions and resources in on time. And finally, before I get started, I would also like to acknowledge my teachers along this path. I've been fortunate enough to work with some amazing leaders and elders locally in Sitka. Louise Brady and Tammy Young have given me amazing guidance. Mike Jackson from Cake, Harold Gattensby from Carcross, Canada, Polly Hislop from Fairbanks, Eric Butler from Talking Peace, Lauren Walker from Hawaii Friends of Restorative Practices, Carrie Berkowitz, Lauren Abramson, who was previously with Community Conferencing in Baltimore, and most especially, I would like to acknowledge my students and their families. Without them, I just would not be here. So, Ganesh Cheesh to everyone for being here. I have some poll questions. So, quick show of hands. I don't know if you can show hands, maybe in the reaction button. Who was in Kurt's session this morning? Because Kurt gave an excellent theoretical background of circles. And, oh, good. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to just put it all into practice. So I am going to launch a poll, or a poll. I was going to do one question at a time, but we're going to do all 6 questions at once. And what I want us to know who's in the room, see what our experience level is, see what our comfort level is, and also just get to know each other a little bit. And so a couple of the poll questions are going to be sort of where you're at in your experience and your comfort. And then we're going to have some get to know you kind of questions. So if you would please, I'm going to go ahead. Oh, I need to relaunch the poll. Continue. Okay. So hopefully you should see a series of 6 questions that you can answer. On a scale of 1 to 5, how familiar are you with restorative practices? How familiar are you with using circle processes? 1 to 5. It doesn't look like the numbers came out, but on a 1, that's what's restorative practices. Am I in the right session? And 5 being you use them all the time. I'm sure you're all clever enough to have figured that out. And then we've got 3 prompts that
Can I ask, is the poll showing up okay for everyone so that they can select answers?
I'm seeing some answers pop up. I'm seeing some choices. I have to, well, I don't know if I have to. The last question is a little personal and potentially disgusting, but it's one of our staff favorites. Looks like we've got some dabblers. I'm noticing that on the this or that questions, it just says choice 1 or choice 2. And again, I'm sure you're clever enough to know that the first answer in the prompt is choice 1 and the second answer is choice 2. Hopefully that didn't screw up your answers. A few more folks like to see. Give it about another 30 seconds or a minute. Okay. 72% participation is pretty dang good. Just like Kurt was saying this morning, in my circles, everybody's got the opportunity to pass. So I'm assuming that some of you are taking that opportunity, and I'm going to end the poll now. So get your last licks in. Okay. Let's share these results. Let's see if this works. I said share results, but I don't see them come up. Oh, I bet I have to share my screen. There we go. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can everybody see our results here? We have some folks who are mostly new to restorative practices. That's good. I always like to begin at the beginning. Hopefully you'll be able to see some pieces that, for those of you who have dabbled, that'll maybe give you a different perspective. On a scale of 1 to 5, how familiar are you with circle processes? All right, we've got people who live circles, lead circles, occasional circles, and what's a circle got to do with it? I'm pretty sure that was a Tina Turner song. And all right, now let's get into the meat of the matter. This is what this is the real important stuff. Would you rather be a mountain lion or a mountain goat? 44% of us want to be predators, and 56% of us want to be providers. Can one of the mountain lions say why they want to be a mountain lion? Just go ahead and unmute and jump in.
We're fierce.
Fierce. I love it. I love it. What about a mountain goat? Why does somebody want to be a mountain goat?
They get to run around on mountains all day.
Nice. Excellent view. And fast? As fast as a mountain lion, though, I wonder. I've never been chased by either. Ooh, 50-50 split between, what was that?
Agile.
Agile. I like that too. Do you prefer Tootsie Pops or Smarties? 50-50 split. Does the Tootsie Pop want to see if we can get a Smartie over to their side? Why should you love Tootsie Pops more than Smarties?
Tootsie Pops were a bigger part of my childhood. I don't even remember seeing a Smartie until I got older.
Great, thank you. Any Smartie people out there want to?
Some people prefer
ahead.
like sour or bitter over sweet.
Mm-hmm. And what do you prefer?
Bitter.
Like your soul. Perfect. I love it. Okay. Meteor or a comet? I have never asked this question. This question actually came from my daughter, my 11-year-old daughter. So I'd be curious to know. I mean, I kind of get it, but I've never answered this prompt. So any meteors out there want to tell me why you want to be a meteor?
Okay, my science isn't great here,
Okay.
but I thought that if I was a meteor and I crashed to Earth, hopefully not on anybody, I leave a lasting mark. Whereas a comet, I was under the impression I'm just going to fade away in a blaze of glory. Decided I wanted to leave a small impact on the Earth.
Okay.
Nice. Might be bad science there.
No, I think it's good. Unless you're Halley's Comet, and then you can just keep coming back.
And all the tchotchkes that celebrate me live on for all the plastic tchotchkes live on forever.
Excellent. What about you, comets?
It just sounds cooler.
It's true. It's like an awesome sports team. We're the Comets.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay. And finally, the question that I have to apologize in advance for, would you rather have teeth for hair or hair for teeth? And it looks like teeth for hair is the big winner. So I'm curious about the hair for teeth people. How did you choose that? Yes, Kenneth. Hair for teeth, whale baleen. Good answer. Sierra just has a sort of appeal of the hairy teeth. I'm always curious about how you're going to take care of it, right? Like, do you have to brush your head? I don't know. Comb your teeth. Also, shampoo in the mouth. Natural helmet. Excellent. Okay. Well, this is great. Okay. So here's how I typically do my, I'm gonna get back in here with y'all. This is how I do what I do. So this is how we do circle. We ask these questions, we get to know each other, we have a few laughs, because as I said in Kurt's session this morning, you can't restore what hasn't already been established. And so when we talk about having restorative communities with young people, we have to build that community first. And you all are working with young people in these after-school programs. And I also don't want to offend anyone, but we think we're building connections and building community with young people, but sometimes we're just talking at them. And it's a little like the Charlie Brown adult, wah, 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 wah. But when we come to circle with young people and we actually hear their voices and we actually get into seriously deep discussions about why a Tootsie Pop is better because, well, number one, it lasts longer. Well, unless you're that owl and it's like, how many licks does it take? But then it's got the Tootsie Roll in the middle. I mean, it's like two different candies in one. So it's obviously superior. And so when we're in circle with young people and asking these sort of silly questions, we get to know them, they get to know us, and we build that initial level of trust. And so that's why I offered those poll questions. And I'm sure many of you do this kind of thing already. I think my challenge is always for myself is to be mindful about how I do it, how often I do it, where I do it. You know, as Lily said, I've been teaching at Pacific High School. I've been at Pacific High School for 20 years now. I was at district office for 5 years. I'm back to teaching English there. And I use circles for everything, for my academic classes. I use circles. We have crew, which is an advisory. So I use circles for that social emotional learning aspect. Because the circle really can hold anything, can hold any conversation. And so what I want to do now is I want to sort of give you all an opportunity to build a little community of your own. Let's see, is that what I want to do? Yes. And we're going to go to some breakout rooms here in a little bit. And we'll put the breakout questions in the chat for this first session. Also, please remember what room you're in. Okay, pay attention to the room you're assigned at the first, and then when you have the option, go back to it. Again, one of the things that's imperative, I think, about circles is the continual building of trust. And so we're just going to run through a circle process today, and we'll show you how close we can get in a very short time. We can model it for ourselves and take it back to your town, your organization, your young people. So as you can see, the first breakout will be introductions. If you just give us your name and your place of work. How are you doing right now on a scale of 1 to 10? And then what's your nickname? And the story behind it. How did you get that nickname? Just to get to know each other a little bit. And hopefully you'll end up with people who aren't in your same organization, or maybe you will, and you'll get to learn something new about those folks that you work with. Let's see if I want to say anything else. My experience with breakout rooms in Zoom is that we're all incredibly polite, which I appreciate. But what often happens because of that politeness is we get into that breakout room and we look at each other and no one says anything or does anything. And then you end up getting into a great conversation and it gets cut off at the end. So I urge you to jump right in to this. Someone who wants to take the lead. I have an idea. Let's say the person with the first name closest to the letter A will go first. That'll speed things up. And that person will then choose the next person, will pass the talking piece, the verbial talking piece. And maybe you have something around you, something special that you can say, I am passing my talking piece to Lily, and then Lily can pick up her talking piece and she can go from there. Okay. We should have about 4 people per room, thereabouts, and we'll open this one up. If we have 4 people, let's do 5 minutes. Okay. How long will the room be open? We'll keep the room open for 5 minutes. I sort of scheduled 5 minutes of time. Let's see. So let's go into our breakout rooms and join away. Perfect. Oh, I hope everyone had just enough time, just like my group did. Let's see. I'm going to pull those chats back up over here. Awesome. Okay. Let's see now. I want to look at something really quickly here. Okay, perfect. Nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stick with this. Okay. So how was that? I noticed that all of my people were from Kenai. I wanted to sort of riff on that a little bit, but I didn't really get a chance. Did you get to meet some new folks? Did you get to hear some great stories?
Totally. I loved my group member Pam's nickname. That's like, it was pretty adorable.
Yes, yes. Yes, and a connection was made, and a potential historical connection, which was awesome to see. Anyone else find some connection with people?
Two of us did not have a nickname.
No nickname.
In fact, I named myself no nickname for today's meeting.
Slowin. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Slowinski?
I pronounce it Slovinsky. I use the
Slovinsky.
Polish
Okay,
W.
good. What about Novinsky?
Okay.
I don't know what Vinsky means. It probably doesn't mean name, though. Probably doesn't work.
Good effort.
No, two people in your group had no nicknames out of 4. Fabulous. Very interesting. So again, taking off I'm the participant presenter hat and saying now, okay, when you're working with your young people, can you see a use for this? Because even though these kids have been with your organization for a long time, or if they've all known each other since they've been babies and grown up together, they maybe don't know even that story of the nickname. Also, how are you doing right now on a scale of 1 to 10 is the most important question that I ask my young people every day. Because if they're rolling in at a 1 or a 0, I know where to take care. If somebody's got an 8 or a 9, I know that maybe I can rely on some support and energy from that direction. And when we're in circle and when we own that, how we doing? It begins to build empathy. It begins to build community. You're a 1. My heart hurts for you. I want to know why. I want to support you. That's our natural tendency. A lot of what we do in circles is based in the knowledge that we know of that inherent goodness. And we are, as humans, we are compassionate and we want to reach out. And that very simple question has been one that has served me well for 10 years. My kids are sick of it, okay? Because I will say that I do, at Pacific High School, we have an advisory group that meets every morning, meets twice a day. So they're guaranteed to be asked how they're doing at least 7 or 8 times a week. And so, and you will also get, I had one student of mine who was in my crew, and he was in my crew for multiple years, and every day he was, I'm Kevin, I'm 7, I'm happy. Because I used to have them identify an emotion they're feeling, because again, we know how important that is, and the work we do to be able to self-regulate, be able to co-regulate. So, so I want to go back to your breakout rooms, and I'm hoping that you did what I didn't do at first, and remember your breakout group number. And we're going to go back to our breakout groups, and we're going to dig just a little bit deeper. What I want you to, the prompt I want you to answer is, what is one value that you would like this group right now, we are in circle, one value that you would like this group to uphold or strive for? And we are going to agree to these values as an as this time that we are together, so that we know exactly where we stand with one another. And if there's a value that you have, that means a lot to you, that you think will make this group go well, then please offer that to your small group. We will bring those all back so that we can all agree to them together. Okay, so those are your instructions. We'll come back and talk about it afterwards. So we're gonna have another 5 minutes in your breakout room. You'll have another opportunity to be with your fabulous groups, and let's come up with one value. What's one value that you uphold, that you want this group to uphold or strive for? Okay. Are there any questions about what that is? Oh, we're just joining. We're going. Go.
We see a lot of nicknames now.
Hello. Okay. Welcome back, everyone. Let's see. I always need to bump my chats back out so that I can see what's happening again. Welcome back. Welcome back. So let's have everyone put your values in the chat. This is going to be recorded. I want to make sure that for posterity's sake, everyone knows the values that this restorative practices with young people agrees to, abides by. And let's see if we have some assuming good intent, listening with intent to understand, equity, patience, honesty, more listening, compassion, authenticity, honesty, speak your truth. Oh, thank you, Carol. Be our true selves. Do not put up a false front or show what we think others want to see. It reminds me of the authenticity of Dan. Empathy, respect. Great one you heard was empathy. Okay, good. Privacy. What is said here stays here. Thank you, Jessica. Respect in a broader sense of the word. Leanne, can you explain what you mean by a broader sense of the word?
So I was often taught that respect was just, as a kid, that like it had a lot to do just with manners, like not interrupting and that sort of thing. But like respect in a broader sense of like, you know, respecting who people are, respecting what we're doing, respecting, you know, the process, everything like that. Like not just having good manners.
Yeah.
Which
yeah,
is
respect.
also,
oh, go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
okay. It's okay. Which is, you know, just the good manners are also important, but they're not the only part.
Right. Respect can be tricky because it sometimes needs to be unpacked a little bit. And when I work with my high school students, I often ask them if they've been made to be respectful. Like, you have to respect your elders, which is also a very strong and good value to have. But often some of the students I work with will then respond with, you have to earn my respect. I'm not just going to give you my respect. And so sometimes when we use respect as a value, sometimes my kids go like this a little bit. They're like, well, maybe, but sometimes it takes a while for them to notice that I am respecting them as well. So I'm just going to run through, I'm going to go back up to the top and I'm going to run through these because I want this group to agree to these values. Like Kurt was saying this morning, you have ownership of this group. This is our circle. And so we are going to be kind. We're going to connect. We're going to listen with the intent of understanding. We're going to assume good intent from others participating in the group. We'll have compassion, equity, being patient and present, unity. Kurt, that's going to be a tricky one. I'm not sure I'm there yet with unity. I don't know who all's in this room. I'm going to trust, though, the good intent. Honesty, again, connection and listening, respect for others and self. Thank you, Veronica. That self is an important piece as well. Authenticity, honesty, speaking your truth, a lot of truth, true selves, empathy, respect, empathy again, privacy, confidentiality, what's said here stays here. Leanne's broader sense of the word respect, participation, Okay. Kenneth, thank you for that. Respect should be given upfront and continually earned. I appreciate that sentiment. So I'm going to change my view to gallery so I can see everybody, or everybody who's on. Can I get a thumbs up? Are we going to agree to these? Are we all in agreement that this is a good thing? Okay. Ooh, even some hearts. That's better than a thumb up. Okay. All right. So thank you. So now I'm going to share my screen, because while I am less logical sequential than Kurt, I can make a PowerPoint. I am kind of, whatever the opposite is. Oh, there I am. I'm sharing. I was sharing. So if I start from the beginning, there we go. All right. So this is the session you're in, and you've already been in here for a while. So we can't restore what we first haven't built. So this is what it looks like to build circle. This is what it looks like to build circle, especially with young people. Constant reintroducing of names, constant checking in with how people are doing, constant telling of stories, and also constant reminders of our values. So this is my circle in my school. And so when we have formal circle, we have informal circles every day. We usually have formal circles at least once a week or once every other week. And so when you come into my classroom and you see this, you know for sure circle is on. Our values are out there for everyone to see. And as you can see, we have a lot of the same values that we all came up with today. In fact, I just did a training for Outer Coast College in Sitka, and they wanted to learn more about circles and restorative practices. And so I did this values circle again, coming together and figuring out who we want to be together. And I forgot to bring paper and pens, but I didn't. But I remembered to bring my values from my classroom. And so we went around the circle and everyone said their value. And there was only one value that group came up with that my students hadn't already come up with. You can pretty much guarantee that human beings want the same thing. They want to be connected. They want to be respected. You'll see in the corner, I have my circle guidelines, that Kurt brought up. And I think that's my next slide. Yep. So as you can see, these are our circle guidelines and our restorative questions. This is how we come to circle together. And because we're a standing organization, we have standing agreements. The values change with each new class that comes in or each new crew that comes in for me, but the circle guidelines are always the same. So this is a school-wide practice. And so when someone is harmed or when we've had an incident, we can move to these restorative questions. But if we haven't already set the guidelines here with these, or set the groundwork with these circle guidelines and those values, then there's really nothing to restore. It's difficult for students to come to a restorative circle if they don't feel respected, if they don't feel listened to already. You can do it, and Kurt has run many of those circles, I think. In my experience working with young people, it's difficult. It's a little trickier. And in fact, I have been invited to facilitate circles when I wasn't part of the community and had them fail miserably because the participants of the circle didn't know me, didn't trust me, and didn't think that I had their best interest in mind. And so I recommend and urge you to become your own circle peacekeepers, to become your own best allies. Let's see. I'm down to 7 minutes. Is that correct?
That's right. If you want to, you can take like a few minutes into Q&A if you want. It's kind of up to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. These circle guidelines and these restorative questions are standard. I was going to say boilerplate, but that sounds a little, I don't know what, non-human. But many organizations use these guidelines. Many organizations use these restorative questions. And the standardization of them makes it so that when conflict arises in your organization, maybe between or among young people, and you run through these restorative questions after you've built your community with your values and your guidelines, you don't really, you can just let the circle go. I don't really want, I'm just gonna go forward. Again, this is actually a picture of the principal of my school. This is what her circle looks like, her talking pieces. COVID means everyone has to have their own talking piece now. But again, we put this was a restorative circle to bring a student back after an incident where they were caught vaping in the bathroom, and then stayed out of school for a number of weeks because the first time we went through this restorative circle, they didn't want to be a part of it. They were obviously not interested in any of these questions. They didn't feel supported by their family member, and spent the circle time attacking that family member. And we just had to end the circle. They stayed out of school for a couple of weeks on their own accord, then decided they wanted to come back to school. So we opened the circle back up because there was no coming back to school without the restoration. And this time they had a supportive family member, and the circle went entirely differently. They took ownership of their actions, and that student is now the student that we knew, last year and 2 months ago when school first started, and not the student who was pushing boundaries and making those decisions. I wanted to show that. This is my crew. I wanted to show you what it looks like when young people are connected and own the circle. The student on the, I don't know what side that is. The student with the mustache and the lanyard, if it's at stage left or stage right for you. That student just ran a circle that included our newly elected assembly members and school board members. We have student circle leaders. We have this, she led the circle in my crew. We had other student leaders lead the circles in the other two crews for those assembly members and school board members. And if you don't think that's high pressure for a high school student, then you have some very stellar people. They were very nervous, but because we do this all the time, they're familiar with it. They know what to expect. And again, you don't have to have a circle about bringing a student back in after harm has been done. You can do it to go around and tell stories about your organization to potential funders. What is it that you appreciate about Boys and Girls Club? Have the students talk. That student ownership, that student voice. In circle, because it is the safest spot for young people in my experience, which is, only limited to my experience. But students are able to share in ways that they would never share otherwise, and gain that leadership, gain that ownership, so that they can then take that voice out into the world, which is really what we want to see. Again, Living Justice Press. These are my dog-eared and sticky noted versions. I want to focus on this book on my right. I don't know if it is for you. Colorizing Restorative Justice. This is a new book that has come out in the last year. That is an amazing resource for those of us who are white, who are doing work with Native organizations in this state, who are working with people of color. Circles are tradition. They have been around since time immemorial. The restorative justice and restorative practices often get co-opted by our Western way of knowing, and are taken away from what is natural. This book gives an excellent way for white people and people of color to reclaim that ownership. For white people to step back, for people of color to reclaim that ownership, and ground it in traditions that have been theirs forever. And then the Circle Forward book is really about restorative school communities. So even though it says school communities, I have heard and offered it up to people of community organizations who find it really useful. It gives you how to talk about anything, how to talk about tough topics, how to do icebreakers, my wife has also been working at Pacific High School and in the Sitka School District for many, many years with me. She is not me. She is the person who does all of the grants, all of the boxes, and yet she also ran a crew in our school, and it didn't come naturally to her, but she is a human being, and as a human being, she's compassionate. She wants connection. She wants to have the best world possible for all of us, and so she figured out how to run crew, and this book would have been immensely useful to her. For those of you who feel like, oh, I can't run crew, I'm not that kind of person, I'm not touchy-feely. You don't have to be touchy-feely to be a circle keeper. So those are my two resources that I want to make sure and I let you know. And again, gonna sheesh to everyone for this opportunity and to get to know you. Hopefully you've been able to, take some of these. I can stop sharing. I should stop sharing. There we go. Take some of these pieces that are that will be useful, and that's it. That's my. How'd I do? 2:31. 1 minute late. I want to make sure and give people time for questions. Oh, good. Lindsay's got one already. Perfect. Is there ever a time in circle that passing is not an option? Okay. For example, a student has agreed to participate in the restorative practice, but chooses to pass, not speak for the duration of the circle. Way to ask the good question first, Lindsay. Well, I'm going to go back to that example of the student for whom the restorative circle was set up. A lot of what she said was, I don't know. And when young people, and when anybody really, when anybody gets in a situation where they have committed harm, we feel bad. We feel like no one understands what it was, why we did, all of those things. We need compassion. And sometimes that's still not enough. The restorative process can't happen if they won't participate in it. So I would think that, and we've done this before, where we have said, you know, it seems like you're not ready yet for this circle. It seems like you're not ready to take ownership, to be a part of the restoration of the situation. And I would probably end that circle. I'm sure Kurt has also had that experience. I mean, I don't think it's probably an uncommon occurrence. It doesn't go against restorative justice practices by requiring people to speak in circles. What it does is it requires us to be compassionate enough or understanding enough, going back to those values that we all agreed to, that might not be the time. Today might not be the day, and it might take a while. I think there's, especially working in schools, I think there's a misunderstanding that, you know, there's no punishment in restorative practices, and so if a student does something, there's no room for suspension. Sometimes suspension is what needs to happen, because that final question in the restorative process is what needs to happen to make this as right as possible. And to make this as right as possible may mean that you might need a break from this organization and this situation. And I also wanted to point out, I'm assuming, and you know what that does, right? But some of you work with organizations. You know, I heard Boys and Girls Club, and I feel like there's sort of a drop in. There's an ability for young people to come and an ability for young people to go, not like a school where they're required to attend until 16. And that transiency, right, where maybe somebody comes in and they don't know your values. Somebody comes in, I mean, everybody's got a mission and a vision and the way in which we want people to be treated. But I was wondering, and I don't know how this works in all practicality, I was wondering if you had a teen center or a drop-in place, if young people could lead, young people who come every day. You all have them. You all have the, you know, the pool rats who are around the pool table and hanging out there every day, getting snacks every day after school, who have participated. If you create a values circle, if you create this restorative community in your organization, if you could have those students lead the next group of students in, so that y'all are, I'm assuming, very, very busy people and probably don't have time to meet with every single person to do a values circle every single time, which would be probably every 15 minutes every day. But again, getting back to that student ownership and student voice.
Well, I think that we actually started circles maybe 30 years ago, but we called them support groups. And we gave the kids a chance to vent, but as you said, sometimes that led to negative behaviors. But on the other hand, I saw instances where there was actually some positive peer pressure that came out of that, with people that offered good suggestions within the circle. But I found that I needed to add on some little activities to get them to think about maybe the problem, whether it was absenteeism, or they weren't doing their homework, or they weren't eating properly, or whatever. I needed to add on some activities to motivate them to think about and talk about in the circle how could we improve our lives by making some changes in those areas. But I do think that I found that most students, they might be absent every other day of the week, but they would come that day. They were going to meet in their circle or their support group. So I think they're very worthwhile.
And I think too, I mean, in terms of, you know, as Kurt was saying, circles can be used for anything. They can be used for support groups. They can be used, as Kenneth points out, for therapy and healing. But be very clear about what circle you're in and what circle you're leading. Because some days you think you're leading a get to know you kind of circle that then quickly morphs into a vent circle that is about something else entirely. And as circle keeper, you know, in that situation, you need to be aware of that shift. And that it doesn't always end up in a positive way. It can end up spinning people up. It can end up, you know, and that, you know, to gently remind people where we are in the circle, what kind of circle we're having here. And that, that you have, I mean, one of the great things about those restorative questions is that they're there. There's 5 rounds right there. What happened? What were you thinking at the time? Who do you think was harmed? On and on. And as a circle keeper, if it's not a restorative circle and it's a get to know you circle, you still have 3 or 4 questions. Let's still go around a few times. You know, you can think on your feet and trust your thinking, but also then know that ultimately you get to decide.
Yeah, I know I'm starting a tobacco cessation group this next week, and I realize, I mean, the reasons for using tobacco are so broad that, yeah, I expect it to go into many different directions from just quitting using tobacco.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to say, I think Kurt had his hand raised earlier. Do you want to come up?
Kurt, come on up. He's just wait. He just wanted to say hi.
Okay. All right.
It was covered in the chat by others. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. We do have a few minutes left, so keep your questions coming in the chat, or feel free to just come off mute. Yeah, just like Pam. Looks like Crash has her hand raised. Do you want to come off mute? Feel free.
Yes. So I had a circle 2 weeks ago with 5th graders, like a huge class, and I had intentions to go one way, and it totally went in an emotional way towards the end. So how could I, like, for other kids whose emotions aren't high, like, how could I help students, or how can I help the circle stay where I want it to go so their emotions don't overlap to other kids, if that makes sense?
I think so. I mean, I think that I can envision a scenario. My daughter's in 5th grade. I can envision a 5th grade scenario going in that direction. Was it a small group of students who were re-stimulated by something that was said or done in the circle, or something outside the circle?
Something outside of the circle that that stimulated those emotions, and then it just did a domino effect to other students to where they had like flashbacks of things that happened in their lives.
And then you also had a group of students for whom that was not a problem, and so now you've got 2 groups.
Yeah.
You know, that sounds like my daily in my crew. And so do you have mental health in your school? like
There's a-
social worker, counselor.
Yeah, there's counselor.
You know, sometimes it's helpful to take, if it's a small enough group, is to do a different circle. You know, it sounds like we have, I don't know, I'm just gonna, let's just say, is bullying on the playground. We have a bullying on the playground incident that's really, really making some of us have some strong feelings. I'd like to finish this circle that we're on now. And I would like to do another circle with anyone who's interested in this topic. And I there's a way that you can like massage that to get from this heavy piece back to yours, but while not leaving those students alone in that heavy spot.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Does that seem
Yeah.
reasonable even?
Yeah, it seems like I need to come prepared next time.
All the preparation in the world, we're still humans. We're all going to go view, view, view. Because we all come in one day, you know, you're going to have the perfect prompt and it's going to be the thing that happened that morning for that one kid. Guaranteed. But I think in terms of circles and, you know, using them in morning meetings, and I think there are certainly ways that you can. Well, I don't know. I'm just talking. I'll shut up. I don't know if that was helpful.
It was. Come to Fairbanks.
Again? I'd love to come
Yeah.
back.
It's only 15 below.
I don't come back in November.
Oh, okay.
I could though.
Yeah, it looks like we're just about at time. We might have like 30 seconds left. I don't know if but thank you all for coming. Thank you, Phil, for a great, wonderful presentation. You can all join me in. Yeah.
I'm gonna put my my email in the chat in case people want to get a hold of me with questions that come up or you didn't feel comfortable, whatever.
Definitely.
And I'll give you this one too. So either of these are good. Yeah, you can get a hold of me anytime. I'd be happy to answer any questions that people have. Or
Cool. That's great. Well, just another reminder, fill out your conference eval. It's you know, it's linked right on the conference website, and come to our networking session. We have like a 15-minute break right now, but right after that, we're going to do networking breakout rooms. So join us for that. And again, thank you so much, Phil. Thank you to all of you for joining us.